So I'm so happy having you to come for our little studio, and I know I'm going to see you this week. So it's funny because it's pretty much we always have conversation, but we never really, we do, but we don't. Like we talk about our personal life, and then I know what you do is actually personal life because it's a family business, and somehow we're also busy and we never really have a time to dive into it. So I'm so happy you're here today because now we can learn more about your family business. And a part of the reason is because I'm a coffee, I love coffee. And everybody just bought me this like awesome box of Don Francisco. All the coffee, so we're gonna have those. I know this like totally covered me, but I just want to show you guys all the coffee. So when I met Lisette, I remember she gave me a business card. We have this dinner for our group, YPO group, and I wanted to have a mommy group because we both are mom and we're running the business, and I just thought that it would be nice to have a couple women together who are running family business and YPO, and also who are mom, how they balance their life. And I remember when I met you, you gave me your card. And it was Don Francisco, and then I was like, is it, so I think I've seen that name, but I really love Gaviña, which is like, we give it out as a Christmas, like package, like basket.
Oh, wow.
Because it was like such a nice gift to give. And then for coffee drinker, if you give it to your business colleague, it's such a nice gift because everybody drink coffee.
Everybody loves coffee.
Everybody loves coffee, right? And then you said, oh yeah, that's our brand. And then I was like, oh, I better be best friend with her because I was like, I know Gaviña. So tell me about how the business started. I know it was from Colombia and it's been around for a long time because
yes,
I've seen those coffees since I was in college or high school.
Yeah, no, we have a long history here in Los Angeles, but actually my family's originally from Cuba.
Okay.
Not Colombia, but
Cuba.
But Colombia has really good coffee too.
Okay. Well, I like your coffee, so yes. I might be biased.
Yeah, we buy a lot of coffee from Colombia.
Okay.
But we actually started as coffee growers in Cuba.
Okay.
And that was with my great-grandfather and his brother. They were actually from the northern part of Spain. And they left Europe and came to the Americas as adventurers. And first they became tobacco farmers. Mm-hmm. And then a hurricane wiped out their crop. And then they moved towards the interior of the island where there's more elevation, was more mountainous.
So that could be for the coffee
For
bean.
coffee, exactly. And they planted coffee, and that's how they became coffee farmers. And then my grandfather was born on the family's coffee farm, and he learned about cultivating coffee. And he was the one that actually started commercially roasting coffee in Cuba during the 1930s, it was the Depression. So a lot of the coffee that was grown in Cuba was exported to the United States.
So I don't know if people been to Cuba, like when I go there, they have this like small little coffee thing.
Yes.
And everybody will wait outside. It's almost like a way for everybody to get together in the morning, all the men, and they will like have like the newspaper or something, and then they were all waiting outside, and then it's not fancy, like I'm not talking about Starbucks.
No, it's like a little window.
Yes,
and you see that in Miami also, like they call it the ventanita. So coffee definitely is a very social part. It's the most important beverage for all Latino cultures, all Latin cultures, more than water. And it's very social. You know, usually you're having coffee either with your family in the morning or with colleagues during your work break. Yeah. And it's very rare that you drink coffee alone in a traditional Latin household.
I love it. I thought that was really cute because I was walking around and then you see a bunch of people just kind of waiting around, hang out this little, not fancy, kind of like hole in the wall place. Yeah. But apparently this is where the coffee, the good coffee is. And then when I ask for one, they give you like a little cup.
Yeah, exactly. So the Cuban way of drinking coffee, what we know as Cuban coffee today, actually comes from Europe. So our way of drinking coffee comes from our Spanish heritage, which espresso is actually from Italy, which it was invented during the Industrial Revolution when they were trying to shorten the time for the coffee breaks. Oh. And so the man that invented the espresso machine, it was to have a quick cup of coffee to shorten the coffee breaks during the manufacturing process. And so Italy, of course, influenced Spain. You know, they're very industrious areas. And that's where our way of drinking coffee comes from, our Spanish roots, which is espresso.
Got it.
And so when you go to Spain, all the cafes, it's all, café con leche, it's all espresso-based beverages. And that's how we make coffee. So Cuban coffee is espresso.
Also the same way.
Yeah, but because Cuba is also a sugar-producing country, there's a lot of sugar cane. So it's coffee with a lot of sugar, and that's what makes a Cuban coffee. And then what
It's
you
so
experience,
delicious,
it's delicious. And what you experience though is a colada. So it's one like brew, let's say a double shot of espresso that they already put sugar in, but it's split among 3, 4, 5, 6 people in these tiny little
Yes, I just
cups.
know it was tiny.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't expensive, so I'm not going to complain.
No, it's
but
not
I was
expensive.
just like, it was tiny.
Yeah.
And then I didn't
But
know it
it's
was
strong.
espresso.
Yeah, it's espresso. That's espresso.
Oh,
But what makes
see,
it
I'm learning
Cuban
this.
coffee is, the sugar, and of course like it's a very strong coffee, and then that goes well with the sugar, the bitterness, and then the colada is something that is shared very commonly.
See, I'm learning something about coffee. I love coffee, so I'm trying coffee everywhere. So thank you for explaining that to me. Okay, so how did your grandfather come to the United States and bring the coffee over?
Yes. So my family fled communist Cuba in 1960 and went to Spain. They basically
so they went
back to
Europe.
Spain.
Okay.
Yeah, because nobody, things were kind of getting a little bit ugly in Cuba, and there were rumors spread that they were going to separate the children from the parents, which is what had happened in Russia. And so before anything could happen, that's when my grandparents decided, you know what, let's all leave together. Let's go to Spain for a while and just until this whole thing blows over. And they ended up in Spain they were in Spain for almost 3 years before the Bay of Pigs, which was a CIA operative. It was a failed operative to basically invade Cuba. And it was very clear that things were not going to change in Cuba. So that's when my grandfather came to the United States.
Do you guys know anyone?
Well, he had some family in Miami, and my grandfather had studied in Macon, Georgia. So he went to university in Georgia. So he knew if they were going to start their lives over, the United States was the place. But my grandfather was 60 years old when he came here. Yes. So imagine.
Oh my God. And he started his whole empire.
Yeah, it's incredible. And with nothing, because it was like everything was left behind in Cuba, all the land, all the businesses, everything was nationalized by the government. And so then, he first came to Miami, he couldn't find work. And then his middle son came from Spain, and they came out to California to visit a cousin of ours whose husband was in the Air Force. And so they came to California, they found jobs, they stayed, and then the rest of the family came. And that was in 1963. Okay. But my grandfather always dreamed about getting back into the coffee business. For him, his whole life was coffee as a farmer, as a roaster. And he saw this opportunity because American coffee is nothing like Cuban coffee, right? No. Very different. So he said, what are we going to do for all these Cubans that are coming here to the United States? And we're going to make a coffee for them.
And there's a lot in Miami. You're right.
A lot.
Because when you go to Miami, you do see this like Cuban coffee shop that I see. You're right.
Yes. In Miami, you have a lot more Cubans. And in LA, not as many. There were 60,000 during that time, probably less now. And so not a big enough market to just roast coffee for the Cuban community. So we started, when my grandfather started, it was focusing on the Cuban community. And then we started learning about different ethnic groups here in LA. Luckily, we're in a very diverse city. Yes. So you had the Middle Eastern community, the Armenian.
Also drink small coffee too, I think.
It's the Turkish style, coffee, but it's a very specific blend of coffees. Okay. Roast colors, they blend light roast and dark roast coffee. So we started learning about how they like coffee and making coffee for them. And then the Vietnamese community is another very important community
here.
The
Vietnamese coffee.
Yes.
Which also very sweet because you use condensed milk.
Yes, and very strong.
Yes.
And it's French roast. So because of the French influence in Vietnam, that's how the Vietnamese taste profile for coffee came about, because it's traditionally a tea drinking culture.
Yes.
From Asia, right?
From Asia.
Exactly. Yeah. But the coffee drinking culture comes from the French influence in Vietnam.
So interesting. I'm learning about
I know, there's a lot.
Like
there's a lot to it. Yeah, there's a lot to it.
So there's a different way. So you gotta have to, because you got in California, you gotta have to make the coffee to serve the diversity, all the diverse groups.
Exactly. And then that's how we started, just catering, custom roasting for these different ethnic groups. And then we saw this huge opportunity in the grocery store, right? Yeah. And so what are we going to do for the grocery store? How are we going to, and that's where the Don Francisco's coffee brand was born.
Yeah, because the only one I remember, if you go to supermarket, American coffee is like Folger,
Exactly.
Or Starbucks.
It was all light roast, American watered down style coffee, no espresso. And so when we launched Don Francisco's, that was basically our attempt into the American coffee market. But we launched with whole bean coffee in bags, which at the time it was all ground coffee in cans. So it was very unique at the time. This was in 1984 that the brand was born and launched here in Los Angeles. Yeah.
But I would prefer the beans because I always think it's more fresh when you grind it, and smells so good when you grind a bean.
I agree. And it's so much more flavorful. But
and it wasn't like that before.
No, everything was pre-ground and light roasts. Wow. And then then it was like the gourmet coffee revolution happened in the late 70s and 80s. You started to see single origin coffees, whole bean coffees. And then the next part of that wave was like the dark roast revolution with Starbucks and Peet's and all these other dark roast coffees. And then espresso started to really take off through the cafes and all of that. And
so what made him have the courage to do that, being 60-year-old, coming to another country to start doing that?
I think he just believed in himself. He's like, this is what I know. This has been my livelihood, for 2 generations. And then he had young children, right? Even though he was 40 years old when he married my grandmother. So he had 4 kids that, the oldest was in college at Cal State LA. My dad went to Belmont High School.
Oh my gosh.
And my aunt went to Immaculate Heart. So she was the youngest, so she got to go to Catholic school.
Yeah.
But it was, they had to figure out a life forward because he was working as a porter in a restaurant.
And doing this at the same time?
Well, before he got started. So at first when my family came to LA, it was about just survival. Exactly. Yeah. Make sure everybody's in school and we have a roof over our head. And so my grandfather worked as a porter in a restaurant in Montebello. It was called the French Cafe.
Oh my gosh.
And there was a patron of the restaurant that worked for another coffee roaster. And so he became friends with the man. And he identified an opportunity for him to buy a small roaster that became available. It used to belong to Bob's Big Boy Restaurants.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah.
That big guy standing outside.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So in the 60s, restaurants and grocery stores used to roast their own coffee. Oh, and so Bob's Big Boy used to roast their own coffee. And then this other coffee company came in and said, you don't need to roast your own coffee anymore. We will roast it for you. And that's when the equipment became available. And for basically $500, which was a lot of money back then, my grandfather bought the roaster. And then with the help of his, children and of course the support of my grandmother, brought it back to LA and set it up in the city of Vernon. And that's still where we roast our coffee today.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And then, so all the kids just start helping. Do they wanted to do this? It's like...
I don't think they really had a choice. It was survival. Like they had to, my dad, my uncles, my aunt, my grandparents, the 6 of them, they really had to band together to survive. And my dad, he went to high school, he went to Belmont.
Yeah.
And he would work at Sportsman's Lodge in a restaurant at night.
Oh
and as my grandfather was getting started, he would sell and deliver coffee during the day. And then later he went to LACC and same thing, and it was almost like a hobby for my grandfather when he started, just to kind of keep him busy, keep him out of trouble. But, he was very stubborn and he just could see no, there's an opportunity here for us. And
it's obviously, wow.
But for the first 5 years, they didn't take a salary. The company couldn't afford to pay my dad or my uncles, so they were working. My uncle is a mechanic. My dad is a waiter. Just, trying to survive. And, but then, they started to gain traction.
Yeah. What was the breaking point? Like, what changed? What was the turning point? How does this business from all of them had to, not as their primary job,
right,
to so successful? What was was it like a one big sales? What was the turning point on that?
Well, I think it was once we went into retail, I think that really created more opportunity. We started with, first it was Price Club.
Okay.
And selling coffee into Price Club. We developed a private label for them called Jose's, which now you can buy at Costco. Oh. That's our brand also.
Oh, okay.
And then also we roast coffee for McDonald's in the Western United States. So we started with a 10-store test. And so we started gaining some traction with that. Yeah. And just, that really created a lot more volume and a lot of growth. During that time.
And how that turned into Gaviña, because that's the one that I love.
Yes.
I think it's because to me, that was like the fancy one. Is that the fancy one?
So Gaviña is our family name. Gaviña.
Okay, yes.
And that's our first product was Gaviña, the Gaviña Espresso. That's what we first launched with. And that was for the Cuban community here in Los Angeles. And then that's what the brand that we evolved for, like the coffee shops and the gourmet shops, single origin coffees, and a lot of variety.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Because it's always like, it was like in my head, it was like, oh, this is an expensive one.
Yeah, no, and we would sell coffee from Jamaica Blue Mountain coffee, 100% Kona Fancy. So we had a lot of variety and really interesting
it was such
coffees.
a great Christmas for business. You know, it was just beautiful, and then have the basket like the set, the box.
Thank you.
Remember. And then you can join as a member. I remember because we signed up as a member, so they deliver the coffee to you like every month or something like that. You can pick your flavor.
Yeah.
It's
It was like before the internet. It was a catalog.
Yes, yeah.
Remember catalogs?
And then you can join as a member. And then I remember we joined as a member, so we would get the coffee delivered because of it, and it was like super exciting because there's so many, like you said, like flavor that is like high-end gourmet, and then you just
it's fun. You try different things.
And then I actually like that much better than Starbucks is gonna kill me than Starbucks, you know. So
it keeps it interesting. You know, you get something curated sent to your home. It's kind of fun.
Yeah. And then so when did you decide to help out and join the family business?
So I grew up in the family business, like most of us that have family businesses, right? So going to work with my dad pretty much every summer vacation, even like, you know, in manufacturing, we work all the bank holidays, you know, Veterans Day and all everyone else is off. I would go to work with my dad. And that's how I learned the business and really developed a love for the business. And I was always very close to my aunt and my uncles and spent a lot of time with them. And so coffee's just fun and it's interesting. You know, we would go to a lot of different trade shows and meet people from all over the world. You know, coffee's grown.
At least you like coffee. Imagine a family business is like, I don't know, credit card. I'm just kidding.
I know. Most people love
or
coffee.
Like Queen O is like, anyway, yeah. So at least this is fun for you.
It is. Okay. It is. It's fun and it's interesting. You know, it's a product that you actually make. That you can touch and feel and share with another person. You can prepare it in different ways, you know, different recipes and even different brewing methods. So I just really got into it. And so I joined full-time out of college and I worked for the company for about 5 years. And then I went back to business school full-time. At the time you couldn't apply to part-time and full-time programs, and I had just gotten married.
Oh my God.
And so
you have kids too, by the way. This is how we bond. Your son is like, I think is a year older or a year younger than my son.
Yes.
We're supposed to play date.
Yes, I know. We got to plan that one.
Okay. So you were in school.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I had just gotten married and then I applied to business school and I went full-time and that just opened up the world to me because I had no idea the value of having a family business, right? How much you learn and how much you see. And part of going to business school is you do an internship between your first and second year. And I was really surprised that, you know, Fortune 100 companies were interested in me. I didn't think that companies like that would be interested in my skill set or my experience. And it was quite the opposite. And
you were all confident. I'm just want to let you know, but
but you know what I mean.
Yes,
my world was so small before that, and then that's why I highly recommend anybody that has a family business go to business school, get experience outside the company.
Yeah.
For many reasons, and we can get into that too. But so I got an internship with Procter & Gamble, and I interned with them, and had a successful internship, and was invited to come back full time in marketing. And so that's really where I learned about brand management and marketing. And I mean, I matured as a business professional too, you know, going to work and nobody knows whose daughter you are or anything. And it was an amazing experience. And then I was there for about 3 years. Then I came back.
So you actually worked for another company for 3 years?
I did. Yeah, I did after the internship.
Oh, I'm so proud of you. You really pay your due.
Oh, you know, part of me wishes I maybe would have stayed longer outside the family business because you learn so much, you know. Yeah. And then I think sometimes when you're the business owner or the family owner, you don't always see everything that everyone sees. You don't always get the same level of feedback, you know,
because your probably won't tell you and stuff.
Yeah, it's different, but I learned a lot and I matured a lot. So it was a good experience.
Because the marketing, so you handle the marketing for the family business, obviously. And what would be the most successful one that you think you have brought to the the family business. It's already successful, and then I
Yes.
really like the gourmet to make it exclusive with the Gaviña. You know, I know you did not want it before, but it really I thought it was very fancy.
Yes, it is.
I love
yes,
it.
yeah.
So it's almost
I love
like
it too. It's what I drink at home.
Yeah, it's like the high end, like you give it to people as like a gift, right?
Right.
So when you came in and doing your marketing, what was your approach to the family business regarding to the coffee?
So when I came back to the family business, I came into a food service role in marketing.
Okay.
And so what I really brought, I think, was the discipline of marketing. Marketing isn't just the make it pretty department. Yeah. It's really, you're managing a business and you're managing a brand. So it was bringing a lot of the thinking, the analytical thinking of like, if we're going to launch something, how much do we think we're going to sell? What's the right price? How much are we making on this product?
Did you get a lot of feedback or from people, especially now they know who you are and you're coming back to the family business? Was it hard for you to come back to a family business, especially where you went to business school, you're working for somebody else, which is good to get the experience and coming back? Yeah.
Yes, yeah, no, definitely coming back to the family business. It was interesting because the employees that knew me from when I had, growing up in the business and had worked in the company before were really excited that I was coming back because they knew that I was going to, bring some fresh thinking, some ideas. They were very excited. I think that the corporate world is so different from a family business environment that I had some folks tell me like, hey, just kind of slow down a little bit, I could just see opportunity everywhere. And so I think I really had to kind of do some self-reflection during that time and say, okay, I've learned all these skills, I've gained all these skills, but I have to be intentional about how I bring that into the family business because it's a different culture. It's a different people. I don't want people to feel threatened by this new knowledge that I had gained.
But by you coming back, you obviously still have to work with your dad, right? Well, your dad's still in the company?
Yes.
Okay, and then do you also have to work with other family members?
Yes,
okay.
Yeah. So when I came back, I've been back now 15 years. Yeah. So time flies. Yeah. But when I came back, it was, my dad, my uncles, my aunt were owning and running the company. And I would work mostly with my dad and my aunt who would oversee sales and marketing and really under their leadership, and together we, have grown the brands and we have a lot to be proud of.
Yeah, I mean, you guys are doing great. But I always wonder when you work for family business, when you have a conflict, how is that resolved among the family member, right? Especially if you're still working with a family. Because none of them are retired.
Yeah, exactly. Well, some are semi-retired, so it's kind of a mixed bag with my parents' generation. But yeah, I mean, culturally, I think that, and maybe it's similar in the Asian culture.
Yeah, it is. That's why I asked this question.
And probably other cultures too. But conflict is not always like.
We avoid conflict.
We avoid conflict. That's exact conflict avoidance, and we try
Why
to just
do that?
I don't know. I think it's just to have harmony. We don't want to be in conflict with our family members. And so what ends up happening though is you tell somebody else and then that person will tell the other person, but that's not healthy. Yeah. So one of the things that my generation is really working hard on, because with our family business consultant, is how to have productive conflict. Conflict is not an ugly word. It's actually a good word. And that a lot of good comes out of a conflict. You can build relationships. You can clear the air. So this is a total mind shift.
This is a great tip. Thank you. I always want to offer something to the audience, right? I mean, for me, what I learned is about family business from you, like how you deal with conflict and working with your family member. I mean, obviously, we also have to find facts, about coffee, but okay, so you got to hire a conflict consultant, and then so you got with
a family business consultant.
Okay, that's a good to know.
And she has given us skills that my parents' generation just didn't have, and we're still learning and practicing these skills. And that's I would say that's the key, is how to have productive conflict and to give each other feedback, balanced feedback. There's not a lot of feedback in family businesses.
I was going to say, how is that? How is that feedback?
It's interesting.
If there is one, it's like how you guys how you accept that feedback, you know?
Yeah, I think it's challenging because in a family business, you don't get a lot of feedback. You know, you might be doing something wrong and nobody tells you. And it's really a learning opportunity. It's not that you want to create a conflict. It's you're not helping that person learn if you're not telling them, hey, you know, let me help you out here. I'm seeing something that maybe you're not seeing. And so I think it's like if you approach it from a place of love and empathy, then it's like I'm being, you know, it's like I'm helping that person. I'm not hurting that person by giving them the feedback, you know. But it takes time.
Yeah,
I mean, we're in our third year now. You know, it takes time and practice.
But that's definitely a good advice to hire somebody like outside to come in to deal with that. Yeah. And how is that affecting how to lead the company? What about with the people like?
Yes.
Who made the decision? That's one other thing I was going to say.
Yeah.
Because they're always going the hierarchy, which is almost like the dad, or, you know.
Yeah.
So how does your company runs in the sense where?
Yes, there are still many chiefs, and it's kind of complicated. And sometimes people say, "Can you draw me a picture of like, you know, who's this, who's what?" But it's basically. This is how when my generation took over operational management of the company, we moved my parents' generation into governance. So they're on the board, and then I am the chairman of the board. So I lead the board meetings and, you know, all of that good work that we're doing there, which was new because my parents' generation, they were the board, the operational managers, the owners, and the family, and they would have lunch together every day, and then they're just, you know, running the business together, doing everything together. In my generation, it's different. Some of us work in the business, some of us don't. We're all owners in the business, but we're not all managers and leaders in the business. So how do you make that work? So our current structure is I co-lead the company with two of my cousins. We share the office of the president. I oversee sales and marketing. My one cousin, finance and accounting, and the other one, all the operations, HR, IT. Everything.
So how you get to find that role? Like how you three of you decide this is the way we should go?
Well, it was the structure that basically the 10 shareholders in my generation agreed to. And I think it's you know, it's working and we're finding our way. This may not be the structure forever, but you know, I think it was an important move just to get my parents' generation, you know, to transition. Transitions are not easy.
No,
generational transitions.
And do they even want to transition?
Well,
because this is pretty much like what all they know, right? Kind of like what your grandparents was like. This is all they know.
Yeah, exactly. And we've treated it like a baton pass, you know, like in a relay race, right? Until you know the person is ready to let go, and the other one has a grasp on the baton. You know, you don't let go. So for some, it's a little bit easy. Has been a little bit easier to let go than others.
I can't wait.
I know. My dad is in the office with me every day, and he has a lot of energy. He has a lot to give. But at the same time, you know, my mantra to him is like, help me continue to move the transition forward.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, because they don't realize it, but their presence is power. And so when they are physically there, although the employees love to see them and talk to them and be with them, it takes away from our power and authority as the next gen. You know, and they don't mean to, but it's just the reality of the situation.
I know that the company, you guys do a lot of community service and you guys try to help the community. And wait, so why is Pasadena and Vernon like such a big part of your life? Is because of the roasters over there, right?
Yeah, so my family, all of my family lives between, you know, La Cañada, Glendale, Pasadena. I live in Pasadena. I think because of the access to the freeway and like to downtown, you know, to Vernon, which is, you know, just south of downtown LA. But I love Pasadena. My husband and I have been married almost 20 years. When we first got married,
oh my God! Really?
I know.
You look so young.
I know.
What?
I know.
I just saw him.
I know. He looks great.
Wedding. I mean, not wedding, birthday. I mean, because Vanessa looked really young.
No.
So,
she is young. She is young.
Yeah. So I forget. Okay.
No, I know. But we used to live in the West Side, and nobody would come visit us, and so we've just slowly been moving. Then we were in Los Feliz for 5 years, and then now we've been in Pasadena for more than 10 years.
So everybody can be near, and it's also close to the the roaster.
Exactly, accessible to the business. And my parents, you know, my parents we live on the same street. We're a very close family. You know, it's very important for me that my son, you know, have his grandparents close by, and so, you know, and because we're a family business, we are very connected to our community. You know, whether we give back to, you know, our schools, our church, you know, and I also sit on the board of Foothill Family, which invests in basically in families that live below the poverty level here in Pasadena, in the San Gabriel Valley, and beyond. Now they're kind of stretching out, but they're a wonderful organization. They give back in terms of, they provide mental health services and family services too.
Because I know you involve a lot of community services, and a lot of it had to deal with Pasadena. But in my head, I was just like, because we were talking what the roaster is. I was like, okay, maybe this is the reason why you pick this neighborhood, you know, so we all happen to be here. But now I get it. Okay.
Yeah. And Pasadena's great. You know,
I know. It's like, so we can always hang out. It's like no traffic. I'm biased, right? Because I also like Pasadena. I used to live West LA, and then now I can never go there because every time going there, I'm like, Santa Monica, oh my God, traffic.
You don't miss it, right?
Yeah. I don't.
Yeah.
The traffic is horrible.
It is.
But a lot of time when you tell people, like, oh, I live in Pasadena, they're like, oh, I have to go all over there.
Yeah.
Like, the west side doesn't want to go to the east side, and then us, we don't want to go to the west side.
I know.
Yeah.
But more and more West Siders are moving to Pasadena.
Exactly.
And celebrities too.
Yeah.
It's a nice place.
I agree. So what did you see in your leadership and, you know, your two other cousins, how you want this company to go from here? Like, what would be your dream stay?
Well, my dream for our company is that people more and more families continue to buy our products. I think that's the ultimate reward when you make a product.
Well, it's international. I mean, because you see, when I'm in Asia, I see your coffee.
Yeah, we sell to people. They export it to Korea and Taiwan. Yeah, exactly.
Because when you go to a nice, so in Asia, there's so many like coffee shop. It's not like Starbucks. People hang out in just like coffee shop. That's what everybody hang out, and they always make little sandwich and stuff. I mean, I see your coffee there all the time.
Isn't that interesting?
Really cute coffee shop.
Yeah.
So that's why when I was growing up, I always remember Gaviña was like the gourmet, fancy,
nice coffee shop.
Because you go to a restaurant for the coffee, which is your coffee, and you sit there for an hour talking to your girlfriend or deal with business.
Yeah, it's a nice experience. Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely.
So your vision of the company is to sell more and then continue to grow. I mean, how many countries have?
We mostly sell in the U.S. That's what we sell to but we sell to people that export the product. So you'll find our products in many places, you know, throughout Latin America and the Caribbean and you know, parts of Europe too. But I would say we're a U.S. based company. We sell only in the U.S. mostly, and we're mostly regional. So our biggest markets are California, Arizona, and kind of going north up to Washington. And then that's for Don Francisco's strongest market. And then you go to the East Coast, Café La Llave, our espresso brand that we made for the Cuban community. Okay. It's Florida, and then up the East Coast, you know, through New York and New Jersey.
Yeah, because in Asia we see your coffee all the time.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but we don't export it to Asia. We don't sell it there. You
want to expand it more?
I think there's a lot of opportunity. Yeah.
You should expand it more. I think like Japan, or because they're also like a coffee type of place.
They love and they love very high quality, very special coffees.
So I could totally see that, like something you can make at home. Like a nice coffee you can make at home is going to the coffee shop. If you're not going to the coffee shop, that's what I mean.
Yeah, because it's expensive too, you know? Yeah, definitely.
So it's like something when people come over, you can have like set it up like a tea party, a coffee thing.
Yeah, something special like that. Yeah.
Okay. I feel like all the stuff I learned about you. So how you balance your life since you're running it with two other cousins, you have a little one.
Yes.
How you balance your life? I mean...
Yeah, it's hard. You know, I'm not gonna sit here and say, oh, everything's in perfect balance all the time, you know, and sometimes you're like killing it at work and your marriage suffers or your child suffers, you know. I think I think the most important thing is to make sure that you're taking care of yourself. And that's what I notice, like when I don't take care of myself, meaning like healthy eating and what I'm putting in my mind and, you know, who I'm spending time with, where I'm getting information. Everything else is not working for me.
Yeah.
So I need to focus on me, and which is hard, like culturally. Oh, how you're so selfish, making time for yourself first. That's something I've had to learn.
Yeah.
But I know it really helps me tremendously when I focus on myself.
Especially you do a family business, so you feel like you have to work.
Yeah, self-sacrifice and give
Yeah.
and give and give. But to what extent? You're putting your health, your mental health, your physical health at risk. And but yeah, I think that's how I find balance, is making sure I'm balanced in my mind and my body, and then I can show up for everybody
so
else.
Important. You're right. I think a lot of us, especially women, we always think that we need to sacrifice as almost like a way to show love, right? Like I show my love, I sacrifice myself. Do we learn that from our parents?
I think it's cultural. I think so. Yeah. I mean, I saw my parents working always. My grandparents, my parents were always working, and it was always for the betterment of the family. And so that my sister and I could go to school, and, we could have everything. And, it was a lot, everything for the family. And I think that's really ingrained in my generation. But I think that there's just a much more heightened awareness in terms of, taking care of yourself, so you don't get cancer, you don't, have a mental breakdown.
That's really good that you identify that, because I think a lot of time people still haven't realized that. I mean, when did you realize that, okay, I need to take care of myself first, balance myself, or else I can't take care of anyone?
Yeah. For me, it happened when I was 37. Okay. I just had this, I was kind of in a low point and wasn't feeling like myself, and I knew I needed to do something, and I just started to have more awareness around what am I listening to? What am I reading? How do I start my day? And my sister played a huge role in that for me, and just kind of helping me kind of wake up and really be in tune with what my needs were. And that's kind of been the journey I've been on, and it ebbs and flows. Sometimes I'm doing my daily meditations and my daily reading and my morning routine, and sometimes I move away from it, but then I start to not feel great, and then it's a reminder for me, like, okay, you got to get back to it and give myself that gift every day.
Yeah, thank you. That's a good reminder for myself. I don't know about for other people, but for me, that was.
It's hard.
Yeah,
and I feel guilty. I feel guilty, like, oh, I'm going to carve out time for myself to work out.
I feel like lazy. I feel like I'm being lazy if I'm not doing things.
Yeah,
because
there's nobility in work. Yeah. I think we're raised to think that way too. Work is noble. You got to work. You got to self-sacrifice. You've got to do. If you're not working, what are you doing?
Yeah. I feel guilty when I not do anything. Isn't that weird?
Yeah. No, I get it.
Yeah.
But I think it's a mind shift, right?
Mind shift, right? So
meditation, exercise, all this, spending time with good people feeds your soul, so that you can be a better leader and a better mother and a better wife, partner, whatever, better friend.
Thank you. No, thank you for a good reminder. I always have this question for everybody who come on the show, right? And then I also give mine to the audience, like, if you can give the younger self advice, what would you say to your younger self? Because we always get the knowledge in hindsight.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, in the past, I would be always like, oh, I wish I knew then. But then now I don't say that anymore, because now I just said, well, at least I'm aware now. So the thing is what you're going to do with it once you're aware of it. But what would be the advice to give the younger self of you?
I think for me, it would be definitely the self-care that we talked about. But I think the most important thing any of us can do, especially as women, young women, is always be investing in yourself. And it doesn't have to be traditional school. It could be travel, who you spend your time with, peer groups that you're a part of, knowledge that you're gaining through what you're reading, what you're listening to. The knowledge we're gaining today is the person we're going to become tomorrow. So always be learning, always be growing. Challenge. Don't be afraid to try new experiences, because I think as women too, maybe and in our cultures, maybe we're sheltered a little bit. We want to be protected, and that's hard to break free from, because I'm somebody that's always wanted her independence.
Me too.
Obviously, I think that's probably why we're here. But it's hard, and I still struggle with it. And but I push myself, and I know when I'm met with a challenge, it's that this is something or someone I need to learn from, something I need to grow through, because I'm gonna be better because of it. It's gonna be hard.
Oh, so hard. Sometimes I'm gonna be like, okay, I know we're supposed to continue to grow, because I also think that we'd be bored if we're not challenging ourselves.
Yeah.
And then I think that's part of it is because, you know, we keep moving, right?
Yeah.
But this time when I was just like, okay, enough learning. Can I stop learning now? Can I stop growing? But yeah. So if you take the perspective of when you came with the challenge and when you go into the grow, just know that this is going to make who you are later. Like, so embrace it.
Somebody once told me, like, that's the little lesson or the little Buddha that somebody put in your way.
That's pretty. Okay.
That you need to learn through. There's a reason why you're meeting this obstacle or this challenge. You just have to work your way through it, whether it's fear or pain. Just have to figure out a way through it.
Yeah. What would be your biggest challenge so far? I mean, what you've had learned the most in the challenge?
One of the biggest challenges in running the family business. Okay, one of the biggest challenges in running the family business has really been how do we take the good that has been put before us and make it our own? You know, you can imagine the cultural differences with the different generations, right? My parents' generation, they were born in the 40s and early 50s. My generation, we were born in the late 70s all the way into the 90s. We have multiple.
Now the 2000s is a completely different work ethic.
Totally different generations. You know, like during the pandemic, we really struggled with work from home because we're a manufacturer. There were, you know, different opinions around that, but we're faced with a 100-year event, a pandemic. Everyone's telling us move people to remote work. And I think just working through those differences, those philosophical differences has been challenging.
You're doing a great job, by the way.
Oh, well.
Like a smooth transition, it seemed that way.
Oh, well, it requires leadership. It requires empathy. It requires a lot of listening, and knowing that I don't have all the ansers.
Well, you're doing really good. So far, so good. Keep it up.
Thank you.
I think sometimes we're very hard on ourselves, and then we need to give ourselves more credit. I mean, that is a big challenge because, you know, a lot of times when you ask people about it, especially a company that have their own culture before, whether it's a family business or, you know, your new CEO taking over, to change the culture is always take time.
It takes time. It takes time, But it's one conversation at a time.
I know. Well, thank you so much, Lisette. I'm learning a lot about running the family business, and then also life lesson. That's the most important one. And then I learned so much about coffee, which is like now I can talk to people about the coffee. I didn't even know, like, different country. I thought they're the same, but now I get it. It's the way the roast is different. Whatever they put in there is different. So thank you.
Thank you, Evie. Thanks for having me. Always great to see you.
It's always nice to see you, and I see you again in a few days.
Yes.
Okay.